And good evening to all the participants who are live with us now and on Facebook. And I have been so graciously introduced by the host for the evening. And yes, whatever little I've learned in the last 28 years in my career as the head of the school and as an educator, definitely like to share it with all of you. But before I begin, I just came back from school an hour ago, and the new academic session has started over here. And it was a very anguished filled afternoon because I had two parents with me. One who was angry because he wanted to know why the fees had increased, and the other one because his child had missed the school bus. So I think probably whatever little research I had done while preparing for this presentation today, I put it to use practically today. And I thought I needed to pat my back because I was quite successful. I handled one with politeness, but with a little firmness, and the other one with empathy and concern. So I think as educators, maybe we might be administrators or academicians, we need to play multiple roles when we engage with our parents in the school systems. And as the slide will now show us, that there are two gifts that we can give our children. One is the roots, and the other are the wings. Wings are the to show them what they will become, and the roots are to remind them where they are from. And this is a beautiful next slide that I've tried to design for you. Parents are the roots that have born and nurtured the child, and we as educators give them the wings to fly, to help them forge a path in life. Naturally, then, both of us are very important stakeholders, and we have to gift our children both the roots to grow and the wings to fly. Because only then will they be happy, healthy, positive adults who will contribute meaningfully to our families, our schools, our community, and if we see the bigger picture, our nation and humankind. So then the onus lies with us as educators to build and nurture a strong and positive home-school partnership. After all, the parent community is a very, very strong and impactful stakeholder. The next slide will tell you that during the 14 years of schooling, and now with the new NCF, it is going to be 15 years, the child goes through numerous changes from a toddler and to a teenager. While and during these 15 years, the parent too also goes through many socio-emotional changes. Initially, we must see that the parents are very anxious. They're overindulgent. And sometimes we feel as educationists that they're too interfering. They want to know everything that is happening in the school, whether my child has had the tiffin or not. Can I get a live streaming of the classroom? The teacher did not smile at my child today. How do we engage with the parents at this time? We have to pacify them, understand them, and resolve their situation very calmly with decorum. And then let's go fast forward 10 years. The child is in the senior classes. And during all these years, the parents also have calmed down because they have matured in age and experience. Their trust and faith in the school has also increased. And now they are looking at us and hoping for different requirements for their child. Maybe academic rigor, could be extra remedial classes, counseling sessions, handling the emotional outbursts, personality development. There are so many things that they want us to partner with. And at this time, as educators, how do we engage with these parents? We have to handhold them. We have to understand and empathize them. There could be an anguished parent, a father who says that his son has just stopped talking to him. Or we can have another very anxious mother who's concerned because her daughter is for hours on the phone and she doesn't know who's on the other side. Their requirements from us now go through a sea change. And as teachers, as educators, we cannot have one straight jacketed blanket resolution for all the problems. We have to try out different things as the situation is. But one thing is clear, whatever be the situations, whether our engagement with the parent could be pleasant or unpleasant, what we both have to look into is the overall well-being of the child. And over here, when I say well-being of our child, it is the physical, academic, emotional, social, physical well-being, because we are the guiding lights in their lives. Now, the child that we have in our hands today may or may not remember us when they get older. But remember, they'll always carry a part of us inside them. And that part that gave them hope and love and taught them to believe in themselves. And most importantly, that part which made their parents as partners in their growing years. It is we who can make everyone in the system understand that the sign of great parenting is not always reflected in the child's behavior. The sign of truly great parenting is the parents' behavior themselves. And that's why parents' engagement with the school, its activities, its teachers, its vision and mission is to a very large extent depends on the way we teachers relate to them. Now, the next slide will show you something like a 6-point toolkit. I know that the word toolkit doesn't have very right connotations in social media, but I have used this term because it will help us understand our child better, optimize their potential, and bring in positivity in the school environment, especially after the pandemic when we reopened last year in the physical mode. There was a sea change that we saw, not only in our parents, but also in the children. The first thing is we must tell our parents every time that validate your child's efforts. Soft parenting, positive parenting requires this kind of validation from all angles, be it, as I told you before, be it socio, emotional, psychological, and several approaches can be adopted over here. It's not necessary that we have to be nice to our children all the time and overlook undesirable behavior. Let's teach our parents that our approach should be warm, thoughtful, and loving, not punitive, but maybe slightly permissive. We need to bolster the child's efforts, because we must make the parents realize that getting 90%, winning an award, winning a trophy is not going to always make parenting a very happy journey. There are going to be moments of anguish. Now, misbehavior. Now, this is another thing that happens and we try to ignore it or brush it under the carpet. Misbehavior is a symptom that the child is giving you that the child needs our attention. Some desire or some need of the child is going unnoticed by us. And this can be manifested in many ways by the children, throwing the books and the clothes around, temper tantrums, stamping feet, bullying, going into social media too much and for too long. All these are triggers that tell the parent and the school that something needs to be done, something is agitating that child. And once that is identified, both parents and the school can work in tandem to bring down these behavioral outbursts. Now, let's not always think of pushing the child for their feelings. Now, the child shows so many feelings to us, but parenting curves need to be reimagined over here. Modern day parents should embrace gentle parenting principles, because they don't probably want to parent their child the same way they were raised. Positive parents are sensitive to the needs of their children, especially during the development stages. Fear, maybe anger, maybe jealousy, distress could be feelings that all the children go through during their schooling years. Now, let's not ignore these feelings or sweep them under the carpet. Let's engage and help our parents to help their child confront with these emotions, because that is a coping mechanism which our millennial children need very, very desperately, because they have become very, very individualistic now. Another area where we can engage with parents is to help them bring out the confidence and the abilities of the children. As mentors, and we all are over here, we may have different roles to play in schools, but we are all mentors, and we have this opportunity to observe a child from a distance vis-a-vis the other children in the class or in the school. So let's convey to our parents that positive parent raises kids with high self-esteem. They believe that what they do, as they believe in themselves, that they can do as well as the other children in the class, and therefore that's a great confidence booster. you know uh, uh, at the end of the day, what do we want academically very bright child, or do we want a child who has a smile on the face and is always happy? Another thing in the 6 point toolkit is, remember that the worse the children feel, the worse they will behave. Emotional regulation in children is not a skill that they are born with. Moods of children fluctuate and swing like a pendulum. We must help our children cope with these self-regulatory emotional framework. And this is a skill where together with our parents, we can enable a child to have a very positive relationship both with the teachers and the school. We have these feelings of nowadays children after the pandemic, they've come out of it, a lot of feelings, aggression, some with withdrawal. Sometimes they are the perpetrators of abuse, sometimes they are the victims of abuse. If children are able to manage their feelings, they are focused better, to be better problem solvers, they enjoy their life at school and home, and their relationships in general are healthy and positive. And lastly, what can we tell our parents? Give them the respect that you want them to give you. Children copy what we do. If we want them to be respectful to the extended family, their neighbors, and maybe the colleagues from your office, we have to be respectful to them. It's difficult for us to be always at the model behavior all the time. But remember, children don't have two eyes, they have probably six sets of eyes, because they absorb everything around them. And this definitely includes how we treat them. You know, Parents, we should always tell our parents, never shame them in public. Even if it is a child of 3 or 4, the child has his own emotional fabric. Why should we tell him, oh, you're put on so much weight, you're looking like a potato, oh, you're so slow, you're so lethargic? That's not the way that we should treat our children, because these emotional scars stay with them forever. And this is where, if during our parent orientations or during our PTMs, if we can convey all these things, because there is no manual for parenting. It's what experience teaches us. It's how we share with each other. And this is something that we can share with our parents, that how they can bring their children. Sometimes it's only a single child. Sometimes there are 2 children in the family. So it's a very small family. Nowadays, it's mostly a nuclear family. So let's bring them on board together and help them and handhold them in these moments. Now, the next slide will tell you the 3 C's of parenting. This is the first connection that, before we do that, if you have anything that you want to convey, please do so on the chat box, especially certain misbehavioral patterns that you have observed in the children, whether your own or your students. If you post them at the chat box at the end of the session, we can definitely have a go at it and see how we can share our own experiences of dealing with it. Now, let's talk about the 3 C's. That the first connection with our parent, how do we connect with them? How do we communicate? How do we collaborate with them? And finally, how do we engage with them for a wholesome partnership for all those 15 long years? Now, as I told you before, parents have become very, very influential stakeholders. Now, even in the school education scenario, you must have seen that when the NCF or the NEP came out, all the drafting committees welcomed the suggestions, or the information provided even by the parent community. They asked them to give them inputs. So these are now they have become such an important stakeholder even in the policy making decisions of the government or the ministry. And therefore, our engagement with the parent cannot be that one way traffic. It has to be a two-way communication channel. The one-way channel that we mostly adopt in our schools is to inform the parents through the circulars, through the parent teacher meetings. But, and these kind of channels, we do not expect them to give a reply. They are always at the receiver's end. So this kind of channel is very, very linear, limited, and in a way authoritative. But we need to move away now when we engage with our parents. The way we ran our schools previously, we cannot have it the same way, because parents have an equal footing, and their feedback has to be taken into account. Now, as educators, this could be a challenge because the communication strategies will be required. And how do we accommodate the suggestions of so many parents who are there with us? Now, let's see what the next slide says. How do we connect with our parents? What are the different channels, the way we will connect with our parents? Now, discussion and information about contact methods. How do we develop this content, this healthy, positive contact with them? Now, at the onset of each session, we have the parent orientation. Let's make that very, very healthy, very informative, and seek their opinions, their suggestions through feedback forms regularly, so that if we have to make any changes as the year goes by, we can do it. Let's share all the positive comments about their children with them. Now, just maybe the class teacher just puts a line in the diary of how she appreciated the child when the child helped her putting up the bulletin board in the class. Well, you have made the day so very special for that child and that parent, because the communication was so positive, and it makes the parent feel that even the small thing was appreciated and noticed by the teacher. All our parent teacher meetings and orientation should head towards a goal about making a discussion, making certain changes, rather than just being a lecture in the linear mode, or rather than an assessment of what all the school has done. How can we also make use of social media? Share all the children's activities with their families. And how can we do it? The pandemic taught us how we can create a class blog or a podcast or maybe even a Facebook page. And even the small happenings in your class can be shared and posted. They can be very simple things. A few seconds video of perhaps the dance class or the music class, or the children playing football on the field, or a house meeting in progress, or even the practice session for an inter-school competition. Open up the mantra is, let's open up our classrooms. Let's not have a closed door policy. With long working hours, both parents working, nuclear family systems, parents want to be engaged and connected with the school and its activities. So opening up our doors, opening up our classrooms, this strategy helps in creating that very important connect with the parents, who sometimes probably feel intimidated or shy to come to school. Now, uh, as we proceed further with the next slide, let's have a look with how what how are the ways in which the connection can take place. As I told you, the discussion and information forums can be in person through the PTMs, the school management committees, or the parent orientations, where we share positive comments about the child and heading towards a goal. And of course, opening up our classrooms. That is the biggest connecting point that we can have while we are engaging with our parents. And also, Another thing that we can give our parents is the policy of being very, very crisp, as the next slide tells us. Now, what is being crisp? This slide will tell us. Be consistent, and avoid. When you meet the parents, many a times as teachers will say, okay, if she bunks her class for one more time, I'll make her sit at home for 2 days. Avoid such idle threats. You and they and us, we all know in the system that we are not going to do this. Now, there is, as I told you before, there is no perfect handbook or manual for parenting. As a parent, one learns every day, and you learn while you're on the jobs. Parents do make mistakes, and as teachers, we have that instinct and that gumption to notice that we have to be very, very diplomatic while we counsel the parent, because we are treading on very sensitive domain, the domain of a relationship between a parent and the child. It's very tender, very sensitive, and very, very dynamic. Parents seek our help. They seek, many a times they seek our intervention. But at the same time, they might feel that if we interfere too much, that is not also not very acceptable. So what we need to convey to them is that they and us should be consistent where our rules for parenting are concerned. We should not change very frequently from day to day. And over here, let's apply the 80% rule. Be consistent 80% of the time. 20%, you can give that little leverage to them. Now, another thing, the R, reward desirable behavior. When a child behaves or falters, or the child has not performed according to your expectations, the parents are very quick to punish, complain to the teacher, admonish. Can we not tell our parents that rewarding good behavior is equally important? Because children of any age, whether they are 3 or whether they are 18, they crave for attention. They will repeat whatever you tell them to get more of that attention. Thus, how do we do it? For example, pat their back. For example, a student of your class has not brought the tiffin, and another of his classmates shares the tiffin with their child. Pat the child's back for sharing and caring, for being compassionate, because after all, that buddy relationship has developed between both the children. So this is another way we can engage with our parents to tell them that always reward them. They don't want much. It's not always that they want a toy or a gift, a smile, a pat on the back, a few words of appreciation in the family, among the friend circle. It means the world to them. Now, the I, be genuinely interested in what your child is saying, doing, thinking, or feeling. We must encourage our parents to spend quality time with their children. Have at least one meal of the day together with them. And while you're discussing with them, let not the points of discussion always be homework and tuition classes and school life and books and tests. Discuss with them their fears, their anxieties, their friends, their hobbies, their hopes and their aspirations. Children have so much to tell us. We do not have the time to listen to them. Because, sometimes what happens is when the child is fearful and doesn't tell the parent that today I bunked my class and I got a reprimand from my teacher. When as a parent, he goes to the PTM and the teacher tells the parent, your child did this. What a shock it must be to the parent that my child never told me this. I had to listen. I had to hear this from the teacher. So again, let your communication channels be healthy so that they are not fearful of expressing to their parents even the wrongs that they have done that day or that week. Provide structure. Can we convey politely that there should be a structured day at home? For example, with working parents, it's difficult. There's a time for getting up. There's a time for boarding the bus and going to school. But do we tell our parents that there should be a structured time for self study? There should be a structured time for free time, for hobby time, for relaxation time, maybe a little TV watching time. It's also. Let's tell our parents that provide that kind of schedule structure at home so that the child gets used to that routine and knows what is expected of him or her. This is what we call giving the children places and spaces. That is what I mean when I mean providing structure at home. Be positive. Just as we appreciate every child in our class with positive reinforcements. Don't we do that in class? We give them a golden star, we call them to write on the board, we tell the whole class to clap for the child. Can we tell our parents that you can do the same thing at home? So instead of always saying, stop running, can we say, can you walk quietly, please? Just the words need to change, the tone and tenor needs to change, and see what a world of difference we will make in our children's lives. And also, the last S that we can tell our parents is be specific. Just as in the class as teachers, we give specific instructions to our students before a test or a competition or maybe an event. Can the parents also do the same at home? Instead of shouting at them over the weekend and telling them that they are messing up the house, can the parent give the child specific instructions like, please play with your toys in the balcony and put them back in the bucket that is kept over there, other than just shouting and saying, oh, you messed up the entire balcony with your toys. This is not the way children need to be addressed to. If they listen to these instructions at school, why can't they do the same at home? They can, because parents have to be told that they have to be very specific with their children. And the next slide now let's see where and how we can open up our channels of connecting with our parents. Till now, we had how we could communicate with them, how we can collaborate with them. Now there are certain very conventional ways of engaging with the parents, which are very tried and tested. But then, like I told you before, like the orientations or the PTMs, but they are very structured, very linear, very one way, and that they're also very sporadic, maybe once a term or 2-3 times a year. That's not enough. There's not much scope for equitable participation over here. So we have to adopt some other channels to hear the parent's voice. How can we do that? Now, these are very, very sensitive areas. I know there are many more areas, but I've taken up the very sensitive areas. For example, the promotion policy. This is one area which at the end of the year brings so much angst in the minds of the parents and a heartburn for them and us. That is the time when we give the parents the report cards of their child. So at the beginning of the year itself, cannot we make it clear to the parents what is a promotion policy? Do we take aggregate passing? Do we take subject passing? What is the passing for the internal assessment? Do we take an average of both the terms? Would there be a re-exam? If yes, in how many subjects? So all transparency is the key. We cannot just tell them when we hand out the report card, oh, your child has a retest in 2 subjects. We have not made a promotion policy crystal clear and transparent to the parents at the beginning of the session. And that's why this heartburn happens at the end. Now, safety security policy. Now, this is another area where we must involve and engage with our parents, because they are giving us their most precious child to us. And security and safety of the child is our moral responsibility. So do we have a safety audit team in place with parent members in them? Do we keep documentation of the safety audits of our school? Parents can be very, very proactive members over here. Let's at the beginning of the year only tell our parents that this is the entry and exit policy from the school. This is the bus protocol. Our the staff of a school is police verified. This is where we have the CCTV. If there's a medical emergency, this is the protocol that we will follow. These are the evacuation drills that we have in case of a fire hazard or an earthquake. All these things, we take it, for granted that parents would understand. No, we have to tell them and bring them on board and engage them too in our committees at school. Now, discipline committee. This is another very sensitive issue. And no parent, even if it is you or I, would never like to admit or accept that our child has faltered. Now, let each class teacher probably maintain a discipline dossier. And the format of this discipline dossier can be shared with the parent at the beginning of the session. So if there's a minor aberration that the child has made, this is what the school will follow. If it is a major aberration, like maybe unfair means in the exam or bullying or damaging school property, this is the action that the school will take. So if the parent knows in the beginning that this is the repercussion if my child falters, it will not come as a shock when you ring them up and call them to school that this is what your child has done. Pointing out also is not our aim. Our aim is also to take remedial steps, because if the child has deviated from the normal code of conduct, and if the ramifications of indiscipline, if not brought to the correct path, can be very, very ghastly in the years to come. So discipline is another issue where we must engage with the parents and tell them that this is the way we follow. These are our protocols. If you have any constructive suggestions, please share it with them. Share it with us. Now, skill development. The CBSE and other boards are coming in a great way where skill and vocational subjects are concerned. This is where parents can be equal partners. They can handhold the school for teacher training, for student orientations, for maybe industry visits. And, there are so many skill subjects which are coming into our schools now, like AI, hospitality, fashion designing, financial literacy, stockbroking. These are new subjects, and many of our teachers are not equipped to handle these subjects because the content is very, very industry oriented. It's very, very skill oriented. And therefore, if parents can partner with us over here, it will be definitely a win-win for all. Now, another thing, anything new in the school, big or small, have a briefing. That briefing could be in the physical mode, it could be in a virtual mode, it could be through a podcast, it could be through a small note by the head of the school. Because our education system, if you've seen in the last 5 years, is going through a very dynamic phase. There's so much of churning going on, so many changes going on at every level, that we also need to convey this to the parents, because after all, it is affecting their child. So frequent dissemination of information should be our goal also. There were many things that happened during the pandemic. For example, 30% of syllabus reduction. For example, the MCQ, the multiple choice questions which came into the examination pattern. Let's convey this to the parent also, that look, they may not understand many a time all of it, but they would feel happy that you have taught them to be so important, that you have shared all these very, very important points that are coming from the state government, from the central government, because at the end of the day, our voice matters, of course, but the parents' voice matters much more. Now, there's another little activity in the next slide. So if you could, these are some areas that I thought where parental engagement can be very fruitfully engaged and can be a very healthy situation for the school. But if you think, and if you can suggest any other ways or areas where parents can be engaged proactively with the school, please post it on the chat box. We will definitely have a discussion a little later. And as we come to the end of the session and see the last few slides, the mode and the manner and the method of connecting with our parents is dynamic. Before 2020, it was very, very linear. But now it has gone through a sea change. As I told you at the beginning of the session itself, have developed that first connect with the parents. A welcome note, a welcome voice podcast that we welcome your children to the school at the beginning of the session. This is what we have planned out. This is our mission for the year to come. How good they would feel. Let's have a briefing if on the virtual, physical mode, whatever is convenient to you. Now, the school almanac or the school diary is also a very important communicating link between the parent and the school because it clearly states everything that the school has planned out for its annual calendar. So, relevant, important information related to fees, related to the school uniform dress code, related to the code of conduct for the children, related to the bus transport and the bus protocol that have to be followed. All this should be disseminated through the school almanac or the school diary. Now, whenever you have a parent orientation or whenever you call the parents to your school, have a Google form as a feedback form. You know, it makes them feel important that my voice, my suggestion, my something that I want to tell the school, I'm being heard. This is such a healthy way of engaging with the parent. Very brief, and nowadays, the virtual platform has opened a Pandora's box for us. There are so many things that we can do with it. So Google Forms is another way of taking their feedback, and then the result of that feedback can be conveyed to them. Okay. Another thing, as head of school, that the next slide tells us is during any parent orientation or something, never feel pressurized to take decisions. Because when parents are together at a meeting, the feeling of group, they feel stronger, they feel empowered when they're in a group, and they might pressurize or force you to take a decision. As school leaders, as school teachers, just keep your cool at that time. Tell them you will discuss with your colleagues and you will get back very soon with a decision. But at the same time, let them know that what they have told you, you trust them, you have faith in them, and what they have told you has value. So, these are the ways when engagement with children can be very, very proactive. Another thing that, many a times in the PTM, the parent comes to us and we tell them, oh, your child is not good with maths. He just got 30 out of 100. Your child, talks too much in the class. Or your child has problems in reading. He's a very slow reader. You have raised a concern with the parent. That's fine. That's your duty. But you also have to be ready with your action plan. If you have told the parent that your child is a slow reader, he has difficulty in reading, immediately tell them that you have assigned a reading buddy to your child, and together, two of them, when they have certain free periods, they will read together. If you tell the child that his marks in maths are not okay, tell the parent that you might have to ask the child to stay back for an hour or so for 2 days a week to have remedial classes for maths. If the child has shown signs of bullying, instead of telling the parent, oh, your child is a bully, can we not tell the parent, that's fine, it's okay, we have a counselor in the school and we'll organize one-to-one sessions with the counselor and it'll all be okay, just wait for a few months. This is how we need to communicate with the parents, not just point fingers and tell them this is wrong and that is right. No, our remedial plan, our plan of action should be also what we need to convey to them. Now, as the last slide tells us, that there would be certain, okay, now this is another thing. I know you are all active on the chat box and we will all have these discussion times at the end of the sessions. And now you will tell me, how can we get in touch with parents on issues that are not the typical ones? bunking, non-submission of assignments, bullying. These are very typical issues that as educators we convey to our parents. Can there be some other issues that you can suggest and post on the chat box, which can be our focal areas for discussion? And now the last slide. There are four categories of parents where our engagement needs to change. Okay, where our engagement with them have to be different as compared to the other children. Now, parents of special children. Now, if you and I were told that your child is special, it is a traumatizing feeling, and it stuns the parent, because it is the special educator who will mostly tell us this. And many a times the reaction of the parents is what? Shock, anger, fear, denial, disbelief, sometimes even disappointment, and then that feeling, why me? Why my child? This is a very typical gamut of emotions that parents go through. Now, as educators, you need very delicate handling. Connect with them with compassion and understanding. Ignite hope, build rapport, tell them it's okay, but there are so many things that we can do for your child. Okay, let us try to take out the hidden potential of your child. Maybe good at sports, maybe good in public speaking, could have a humanitarian heart. Let's help the parent to cope with this very traumatic phase of emotional acceptance and preparing an alternative instructional plan, both of you together, the educator and the parent. So, special children and their parents need special handling from our end. Now, again, parent of low achievers. These parents also need very, very delicate handling, especially in our Indian scenario. Because Indian parents, and it's very natural, we relate school success at school with high scoring marks because our system celebrates academic excellence. How the A grade, the 90%, the 100%, the 5-star badge, we are always pushing our children, towards this hypothetical excellence. Let's convey a different story to our parents. It's okay to be 60%. It's okay to probably fail in one test or one exam. That's not the end of everything. Focus on all round development. And here, the parent educator connect is very, very important, because with the children who are low achievers, we have to work extra to tap their alternative potential, which could be, as I told you, sports, music, dance, community service. Let's highlight that rather than just telling, oh, your child is getting low scores all the time in all the PTMs. The third set of parents, which we need to engage in another different way, is other single parents. Now, always convey this to all your stakeholders, that your school believes in inclusivity and that you have no bias, and neither do you appreciate anyone who has a bias. So, our collaboration and communication with single parents will need an extra effort from our side, because that parent is performing dual roles. So, we have to be flexible in our deadlines, because we know that the child is not getting the required home support. So you have to structure your meeting times according to the free time of the parent. Probably the submissions of assignments could be late. Do not be very critical or harsh about it. So create a classroom culture that celebrates family inclusivity. And finally, the difficult parents, like the two I had today when I started this session, they add to our stress, no doubt. So what do? Keep our cool. Diffuse the situation. Sometimes understand, sometimes be firm, sometimes negotiate. But keep the communication channel always open. Many a times what we do is, with difficult parents, we have a fence or we create a wall. Oh, he will always come and criticize. Let's not talk to him. No. Let them come to school, but keep them informed about everything that is happening about their child in school, because one fine day, these difficult parents could be, in a few years' time, your most positive and encouraging parents. So,
One question here. If
mm,
any child is facing learning disability, can we tell parents directly?
no, no, no. If the child has been assessed by an external body other than the school special educator, you have to ask the parent to give you all the documents related to it. And if it is not identified and you have identified in the school, first the head of the school, the class teacher, and the special educator and the counselor should sit together and talk about it, and then call the parent. And the special educator should tell this to the parent, because she is technically trained or he is technically trained to do so. And they have to tell the parent what they have observed, what are the symptoms, and try to validate, are the parents also noticing the same things at home. And then a plan of action has to be drawn out, and the parent has to be kept in the loop every time for every meeting with that child. We can tell the parent directly, there is no problem, because as for special children, the school is not authorized for any kind of medication or something. We are just going to tell them and counsel them for coping mechanisms.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that. Do we have any more questions? Okay, I think, ma'am, you're very clear. So
Okay.
we have no more questions here because the presentation was really clear. We are very grateful to you, Ms. Sunila Athley, for the insights
Thank
you've
you.
shared. It's a very interactive session. It was a very insightful session also. Yeah, we have one question here.
Hmm.
If a child who is good in oral and lacking in writing skills, what suggestion can be given to the parent?
Suggestion is that we should not force the child, because probably the achievement milestones of different children are different. So probably he's picking up slightly late. Give him some time. We need to have patience and tolerance, and maybe start with few alphabets, few words. He may be lagging in the writing aspect where the class is concerned, but we have to have empathy. We can make the child stay back. We can tell the parents how they can increase the writing speed, but it should not be forced with the small children, because it requires eye hand motor coordination, and that is something that cannot be hastened.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that. Do we have any more questions? Yeah, there's one question here. Some parents won't allow students to participate in co-curricular activities.
Yeah. So so when you have your first parent orientation of the year, don't highlight academics at all. On the PPT, just put up pictures of children who have achieved in sports and co-curricular, and don't call it co-curricular now, call it co-scholastic. Okay, change your terminology. Highlight in your Facebook page the children who are achieving in co-scholastic domains. You know, so this will give the parent the feeling that the school appreciates both, and then they will gradually put their child over there, and probably make co-curricular activities a part of your internal assessment.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that. We have one more question here. How do you cope with bullying parents?
Bullying parents, tricky thing. So when they come angry to your school, give them a glass of cold water first, um, calm them down, mostly they want somebody to listen to them. Okay, that is the first thing. And you do not want to aggravate the situation, because these parents can have a n- negative effect on the others. They might influence other parents. So hand them tactfully, listen to them, tell them that, look, if you have this negative attitude towards towards the school, your child is also going to see the same thing. If you're going to talk badly about the teacher at home, the child is going to have a deviated opinion about the teacher at school. So your behavior reflects in your child. And tell them, what do you want from the school? Let us know. Because many a times, and then you tell them, look, these are the things we can offer you, we can accommodate, these are the things we can't. So bullying parents need to be dealt with patience. Listen to them first. Don't just tell them and give them appointments, come at this time, come at that time, because that will aggravate the situation. We need to negotiate over there. Our negotiating skills have to come to play.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have one more question here. Uh, as a teacher, how can we help the hyperactive students in their studies?
Okay, hyperactive children are those ones who are either very academically bright or they are the low achievers. That is why they are hyperactive. And first of all, have the counselor assess them. Are they cases of ADHD? Okay, so the counselor will just come sit behind the class and just observe the child. So, a hyperactive child, he may be a child who has got kinesthetic multiple intelligence. That means cannot sit in one place for long. After every one period, if the child wants to move around a lot, move around a little, let him do so. If he wants to go to the water point, drink water and come back, let him do so. Because if you don't permit it, he will create chaos in the class. Okay, observe the child. If it is just a behavioral aberration where you can calm down the child, the counselor knows these tactics, how to calm down. They have the ball pressing activity, they have the short spurts of meditation activity. There are all these coping mechanisms which we can give the child. And probably sports. Get the child out on the play field. The hyperactive child releases his or her energy there.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have one more question here. If the child gets hurt by other kids, then how to hold the parents?
Which ones? The one who has got hurt or the one who has hurt?
The ones, I think both.
Okay, both. Now, first of all, you have to understand whether it was something done unconsciously or deliberately. If it is an unconscious thing, tell the parent of the child who's got hurt. This happens in the play field. This happens in a community space when they're going up and down the stairs, when they're boarding the bus. Don't worry. We have the medical, the school doctor, the school nurse. We have given the first aid. Ring the parent up and tell them it's all okay. Please don't bring in the parents immediately. If it can be resolved with you within the school, and if the hurt is not very grave or serious, resolve it. If it is a serious hurt, you need to call the parents. If it is something done unconsciously, not deliberately, tell them this has happened, and it can happen. Don't worry. But if it is deliberate, you have to you cannot warn a child. The child sometimes does it and doesn't know the repercussion. You have to tell the parent that counsel the child at home. We'll also counsel, maybe this aggressive behavior has hurt the child, and if this happens again, probably the child needs to go for stricter, severe counseling. But don't punish the child at the first instance. Okay, that will send a very wrong signal. Talk to the child. Look what he did. He hurt the other child. If the same thing would have happened to you, what would you have done? So counsel, talk to the child. Don't take punitive action immediately.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have one more question here. How to fundraise with the parents for a good cause? Are there some time-tested approaches?
If you ask me, don't go onto that path. Okay? Because if the parent is funding something, he will expect something in return. And you may not be in a position to accommodate his requests all the time. So if it is a fundraising, maybe in a school fete or something, don't do it in the monetary value. Okay, do it some other way. For example, if you have a food fest in school, you can have food stalls made by the parent. Okay, if you have an annual day, you can ask the mothers to come and do the makeup of the children. Okay, something like that, but avoid monetary transactions.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have one more question here. Students of most government schools in Telangana, even after coming to the 9th and 10th standard, have trouble in reading and writing skills. And the government have introduced a read program where students are made to inculcate reading habit. But even though students are asked to read, they are still having trouble. What to do?
If you see PISA, if you have the PISA result, we were one of the very last countries. And the PISA is the global standardized exam conducted. And one of the pillars of PISA is reading literacy. And we faltered over there. Now, this is because in language, we make the child go the other way around. Reading, listening, we don't follow the LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, writing. We go the other way around, and that is where the problem arises. We make them write first and read next. Now, various reading strategies give your library a very vibrant look, make it welcoming. Keep your little small poofs, couches, carpets where the children want to read. If they want to, small children want to lie down and read, let them read it. Give scaffolded reading things, graded reading. For example, tell them that at this time you should be reading these books. Have paired reading, buddy reading. They can read in pairs, they can do group reading. If they are not fond of reading, the teacher can read out first, they can read out next. Children nowadays are biliterates. That means they can read on the print media and visual media, but both need different skills. So ask your language teachers, because reading will help them understand the question paper. If they don't read well, they will not understand the question, and that affects their scores. So have special reading periods in a week, and have scaffolded reading. Don't give them the thick, big books all of a sudden. Even if it's in class 9 and he wants to read a 10-page comic book, so be it. Let's make a start somewhere.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have one more question here. Is our culture of achievement exhausting our youth?
Yes, but times are changing, because now you must have seen, if the academic page of the report card is important, so also is the scholastic page. We give equal importance to that. So academic rigor, I won't say is playing havoc with the children. No, because our children are all over the world, the top CEOs everywhere. So nothing is wrong with our system. Probably what needs change is the transactional model. Our curriculum, our content, our syllabi is perfect. How our pedagogic transactional models need slight change, should be more two-way, should be more student-focused, should be more activity-based, more projects, so that we should not have something like this is the right answer and this is the wrong answer. No, both answers can be correct, but just justify your answer. So out-of-box thinking, give them questions that are case-based, source-based, which requires them to test their higher order skills. This will ensure that rote learning and academic pressure comes down.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have one more question here. I am a new teacher in government high school. Can you suggest me how to help children with reading?
If it is the primary classes, you can start by having a small class library. Okay, because the library periods are only once a week, where they go to the big library. So can you have something like low lib? Something like low lib is little open library. That means children can bring their own books, keep it on a small rack in their library. They can exchange it. I kept one book here today, I will take the other book. So that exchange, the thing of reading together, have certain reading games, like have damsharats for reading, like we have the The games, you read 4 lines, you read 4 lines, and then don't say you're too slow or you're faltering or you're mispronouncing. The reading factor happens, the reading fear happens because we tell them, oh, you're reading slow, oh, you're reading incorrectly, oh, you're mispronouncing the word. When they read, give them free, stress-free environment for reading. Okay, let them read first silently. Okay, then that builds the confidence for reading loudly. And start, when I say scaffolding, start with very simple books, very simple thing. Let them see on the visual media and then read the same thing so they know how the words have to be pronounced, what should be my speed of reading. So try multimedia approach to reading. And then there is one app, the reading app. If you can download it, it's beautiful. It has stories of Abdul Kalam and his boyhood days and all, because we give children such complicated text to read. Give them small stories. They like to read and listen to stories. So try this reading app. You can download it from the App Store.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We have one more question here. Can we create a reading corner in the class and ask them to read some reference books during recess?
They will run away. If you give them reference books and encyclopedia to generate interest in reading, they're going to run away. First, give them comic strips, give them small story books, give them folk tales books, so light reading, and then go on to difficult reading. Let them read a recipe, let them read anything. The thing is getting them to read. If they want to read a menu card of a hotel, so be it. That is also reading, because in their adult life, they will have to read this also. So give them a plethora of texts. Okay. And if you want to give them encyclopedias and reference books, you have certain pictorial ones, because millennial children are visual learners. Okay. Their visual acumen is very, very strong. So if you want to get them to reading, get them books which have interplay with pictures, comic-cons, and text.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. Do we have any more questions? Yeah, we have one more question, ma'am. How do we deal with students with less attention span?
Less attention span, uh, studies have shown that the attention span of a child is just 3 to 4 minutes. So if you're just talking, and it is just linear, you have no activities in your class, you're doing no board work, you're not requesting for responses from the child, the attention span is going to reduce and it's going to show up. But if it is very different in a particular child, seek the help of the special educator. Try to find out why is it. Maybe it could be just because the child has got problems of deworming, maybe eyesight. There could be so many different areas. So we have to keep ruling out and then zero down on what is the issue. Could be an issue in the family, could be the birth of the second child. There could be so many things. So first zero down on the issue, then work upon it.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. Do we have any more questions? Yeah, ma'am, we have one more question here. Can we think of home assignments in which both parents and children are together engaged?
Yes, please do so, because their parents are very happy to help with the holiday homework till class 8. And when the children fly out from the family nest, the parents miss those days. Okay. So let the holiday homework be something like, let's together for a week see the number of the electricity volts that we are spending, and let's make an effort and keep a weekly chart how we can reduce it. Whole family works together and make a bar graph representation of that. Okay. The whole family can together cook a meal. Homework need not always be reading and writing only. They can go on a family vacation and then they can take pictures, and together they can make a picture story of their summer vacation trip. Holiday homework, parents working with children. So what you give them should not be something uninteresting. It's a test for the teacher to think of activities where the whole family is involved.
Ma'am, it's not only homework as such, but something to solve at home.
Climate change is a very big thing. Sustainable development is a big words now. How can we simplify it with the children? Let's reduce our spending of water. Let's go in carpools rather than driving one child to the school. Okay, so these are the ways where the family can we can help the family say no to crackers.